When I was younger, games seemed endlessly replayable, probably because it was so difficult to get new ones that you had to make the best of what you had. As I have gotten older though, I have stopped going back and replaying older games in favour of new ones. Despite this, though, I have really enjoyed the amount of PlayStation 1 classic games that have been ported and remastered and brought to modern consoles. This is, mostly, because of the addition of trophies, giving me a perfect excuse to go back and replay something from my childhood and get another shiny platinum at the same time. Aspyr has been doing some amazing work bringing these old classics forward, like the Tomb Raider games, the Soul Reaver series, and now a game that I spent hours trying to complete as a kid, Star Wars Jedi Power Battles. So let's take a look at what's been added, improved upon, and how to earn its platinum trophy. If you are unaware, Jedi Power Battles is a beat-em-up hack-and-slash style game based on Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. In this, you can choose to be one of a handful of Jedi, like Obi-Wan Kenobi or Mace Windu, and then you fight your way through armies of droids and other enemies to get to the end and maximise your score. In the original game on the PS1, there were secret characters like Darth Maul and Queen Amidala, as well as extra levels to unlock to keep you coming back. But one of the nice things about this remaster is that all of these characters and levels are immediately unlocked. However, Aspyr have added some extras like Jar Jar Binks that can be unlocked by finishing the game. Although most of these extra characters play pretty similarly, at least the Jedi are all quite different when it comes to their combos, abilities, and combat strength. Master Jedi Qui-Gon Jinn starts out with just a Force Push ability that shoves enemies away from him, and a pretty standard speed combo. But as you play through the game, you will gain access to a Force Projectile or even a Force Healing move. On the other hand, Jedi Plo Koon has much slower combos but is much stronger, with much more damage focused abilities like a spinning lightsaber attack or even a Force Lightning one. Some of these Force abilities are locked behind upgrades which you can earn by crossing certain score thresholds in each level. The first threshold might be something like 5,000 points, earning you a new combo to unlock. The second might be 8,000 and usually offers an increase in your health or your Force ability. And the third and highest tier is usually something like a defense or attack boost, or more importantly, an additional Force ability like Qui-Gon's healing. I wish I could say that utilising all of these combos and abilities make you feel stronger, but for the most part, they kinda don't. With some of the basic combos you start with actually being the most efficient to use throughout the entire game. It's not all about offense though, each character can dodge and block as well. If the character has one, they can use their lightsaber or certain Force abilities to stop attacks, and with blaster fire, if you time the block just before it hits you, you can deflect the shot right back at the enemy. I love a parry in a video game, and even though sometimes blocking felt a little sluggish, it was still my preferred way of killing droids because it was fun. There are also some platforming sections in the game, and I feel like this is where most of the game's age shows. Despite some improvements and modernizations to the control schemes, Jedi Power Battles is very janky. Jumping feels very inconsistent, and combat often feels like there's no rhyme or reason to when an enemy will stagger, or when it can power through your attacks and launch you in the air. The camera also has a weird habit of locking you in a specific area, and even certain power-ups or score boosts become difficult to reach because the camera just won't move far enough over for you. This is aggravated by the fact that sometimes enemies will just appear from outside the screen or right behind you without warning, and the game can actually be kinda tough at points when you have a large group of droids firing at you all at once, especially when you are trying to jump platforms to get to the enemies and their firing is knocking you on your ass. You only have a limited number of lives in the game too, and more often than not, my deaths were due to bad jumps rather than to enemy combat. To be fair to Jedi Power Battles though, all of these issues were present in the original, and despite them I did still enjoy myself playing through the game again. And not all of this was nostalgia for a game I played with a friend when I was a child. It is a straightforward kind of fun that is easy to lose a couple of hours to, with very little in the way of narrative driving you forward, just trying to chase that high score. I do wish there had been some more additions or touch-ups to the game though. There is a co-op and a PvP mode, but unfortunately these are both couch co-op only. It would have been really cool if there had been an online mode to play through the game with friends, especially as doing just that was one of my fondest memories of this game when I was younger. Also, for some reason, they have taken out the really cool character selection screen from the original of all the characters in the Jedi Council Chamber, which is really sad. Aspyr have done a pretty good job with the graphics though. Textures and backgrounds have all been touched up, and it looks like the game does in my memory rather than how it did on my CRT 25 years ago. There is still a sense of PlayStation 1 style here, like the warped, misshapen characters meant to look like their actors, and I will admit that I do find this weirdly charming. Aspyr seems to have a philosophy with their remasters of keeping things as true to the original as possible, and this is incredibly evident here. This, unfortunately, includes a lot of PS1 issues, like some levels having some very odd stuttering, like the Streets of Theed level, where you're on a speeder, it feels like the map underneath you keeps resetting to keep up. There are also a lot of moments where you can see past the edges of maps to unused areas or geometry. It's nothing game-breaking or even really that distracting, but it is noticeable, and depending on your stomach for things like this, it can be detrimental to your experience. There are, and I need to mention these, a few bugs in the game that are quite frustrating, and I wish more care had been taken to iron these out. Audio bugs are pretty common, with sometimes blaster fire not actually making any noise at all, or certain lines of dialogue being repeated over and over again in one of the game's minimal cutscenes. I also had a few bugs with the last boss fight that were really annoying, as he's actually quite hard. The first of these happened when I was trying to play through the last level as the unlockable character Captain Panaka. In the beginning of the fight, if you shoot the boss with your blaster, he will get knocked back a little bit. If you do this too much though, he can go off screen, unable to hit you, and no matter how much I hit him, the level didn't transition to the next stage, so I had to restart. I also had an issue when I tried to fight him with Qui-Gon Jinn, where instead of the game going into the ending cutscene when the fight ended, both characters just froze, and I could do nothing but pause, and eventually had to restart again. The trophies in Jedi Power Battles are also quite easy to earn, and it only took me about 18 hours. The time would have been a few hours quicker if it wasn't for yet another annoying bug though. When you first start the game, you're given two difficulty options, Easy and Jedi. There are trophies for beating the game on both difficulties, and like most games I assumed these would stack, so I played the game on Jedi mode first. When I eventually beat the game though, the Easy mode trophy did pop, but the Jedi one didn't. I tried beating the level again, but nothing. I went online and found that a few people had the same issue, especially on the PS4 apparently, so I started a new game, this time going with Qui-Gon Jinn instead of Plo Koon, and tried again. The game isn't exactly long, and I did manage to rush through the whole game in an entire afternoon, but I was concerned the whole time that this bug would happen again. After encountering the other weird bug I mentioned earlier, where Darth Maul and Qui-Gon just froze and I had to restart the level, I eventually did beat the game and did earn the trophy Jedi Master. There are quite a few trophies to be aware of as you play, like the trophies for getting specific scores on each of the game's main 10 levels. Most of these are pretty easy to earn if you take your time to fight every enemy and find every power-up and healing item in the area before you move on. But there are a few that can be quite difficult to reach the top score, like the 7th level called Ruins. You need 30,000 points, and the easiest way to get this is to let yourself die at least once near the second checkpoint, and then go backwards, as this is one of the few times that you don't get locked out. Kill the enemies here again, and this should push you over the threshold by the time you reach the end of the level. There are also a few other miscellaneous trophies that you'll need to do, like playing through at least one level with Mace Windu, Plo Koon, Captain Panaka, and Darth Maul. You will also need to play through the levels that in the original were secret unlockables, like the weird game where you stab Jar Jar Binks to make him run into a goal. You don't need to worry about the score in these, just finish the levels. All of the other trophies will come pretty naturally, except for two that you need to look out for on the level Tatooine. The first of these is 1000 Years in the Pit, which is for jumping into the Sarlacc pit. About halfway through the Tatooine level, you will find yourself jumping around some platforms above the Sarlacc. Just jump in and the trophy will be yours. The second also involves this same Sarlacc pit, but this time you need to throw an enemy into it. I believe that the only character who can do this is Qui-Gon Jinn, who can use his Force Push ability to knock one of the Tusken Raiders into the pit, and doing this will earn you the trophy Food Delivery. Once you've done everything the single player has to offer, you will earn the Platinum Trophy Grand Master. For whatever reason, Star Wars Jedi Power Battles was one of these games that has weirdly stuck in my memory from my childhood. I don't remember the janky controls or the dated graphics, but I do remember the fun I had playing it with friends. I was pretty excited when I heard there was going to be a remaster, and I am disappointed that more was not done to make it more playable now. I still enjoyed my time with it, sure, enough to spend a weekend getting the platinum, and I'm sure in another 25 years I will still remember the original fondly, but it is a product of its time, and it needed a lot more love than it got in its modern day version. But if you're like me and you have a soft spot for the original PlayStation games, jank and all, and you find them quite charming, you'll probably enjoy this game as much as I did. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please let me know in the comments, and until next time, happy hunting.